The New South Wales government is facing the possibility of being plunged further into minority after a key independent threatened to withdraw his support. Sydney MP Alex Greenwich is seeking an urgent meeting with the Premier Dominic Perrottet over his comments about transgender children and transgender participation in sport. Joining me live now is New South Wales independent Alex Greenwich. Thanks so much for your time. What has Dominic Perrottet said?
Well, thank you, Laura. Let me start by saying I welcome the fact that the Premier has agreed to meet with me, trans advocates and sporting representatives. And we'll take to him that this actually isn't an issue on the sporting field, and that it's important that trans people are allowed to participate in sport, that sport is good for everybody. What the Premier said was boys should play boys and girls should play girls. Look, I know that sounds innocent enough, but if you're a trans person, you understand that this is a dog whistle, that this is trying to drum up some sort of fear that people are transitioning to stacked sporting teams and the playing field is no longer safe. The reality is, trans people are afraid to leave the home because of the high levels of bullying and harassment that
Alex,
they experience.
that's not what he said though, is it?
Sorry, say that again?
That's not what Dominic Perrottet actually said though, is it?
Yes, his direct quote was boys should play boys and girls should play girls.
Well, I've got the quote here. He says, and I think it's fair enough to read it to you in full. I agree with most fair-minded Australians, he said, that girls and women should be free to play sport against girls and women, particularly where there might otherwise be an unfair advantage. It's a matter of fairness and physiology. The right thing to do is take the concerns of women and girls seriously, not to shut them down. And if it means looking at appropriate protections for women-only sports, let's have that conversation. Clearly, these issues have to be debated in a very sensitive way at every step, but an insensitively expressed view should never distract us from the merits of the substantive issue. What's wrong with that?
Well, look, that's one of the comments he's made, and obviously he's made other comments on this topic, just to say Ben Fordham yesterday on the radio. Look, my concern here, and the concern I have expressed to the Premier, is he's made these comments in a vacuum of not talking to sporting codes who already deal with this, not understanding that there's already legislation in place that excludes trans people from sport based on criteria established with sporting codes and the Human Rights Commission, and not understanding the impact that this whole debate is having on young trans people.
But it's not his fault
so we ask,
that the
where
debate
does this
is coming, right? It's not his fault that this debate is happening. He was asked on radio and he said it should be talked about in a pretty sensitive way.
Look, the problem I have with that is he was one of the key people who selected Catherine Deves for the seat of Warringah. This is a person who has made her career out of attacking one of the most vulnerable groups in our community, that being trans people and particularly trans youth. I mean, Catherine Deves, the only sport she has played is picking on young people, young trans people. So, look, I do think there is a vacuum here. As I said, Laura, I welcome the fact that the Premier will be meeting with me, will be meeting with trans people, will be meeting with sporting codes. And I really hope that we can just leave this issue alone. I'm concerned that this has been adopted as some dog whistle, some dead cat strategy in this election to distract away from the policies and issues we should be talking about. And I'm concerned that the impact that it is having, whether you like it or not, the reality on the ground is that calls to helplines, suicide prevention helplines for trans people are going through the roof. The reality is that trans kids are asking their parents, can we still play sport with our friends? I mean, that's heartbreaking for a parent to hear. Can we just leave trans people alone? Can we let them get on with their life? Can we leave the sporting codes to do their job in something that has been working without fanning these flames?
But I don't think the Premier was suggesting anything other than what you've just said to me.
Well, why tune into the debate? And if that's what he said, he's had plenty of time to clarify that to me directly.
If you're asked an opinion live on radio, the Premier is allowed to have an opinion, right? Every elected official is.
Oh, absolutely.
And he
when
wasn't
you're the
talking
Premier
about
of the
a change
state,
of policy, was he?
Look, when you're the Premier of the state, absolutely you're entitled to your opinion. It's important that it's a considered opinion, and it's an opinion that is based with talking to everybody. That includes trans people, and that includes the sporting codes.
Okay, but just to be clear, he has accepted that meeting with you and the trans community?
That's correct, and I really welcome that. Okay. And we look forward to having a really cooperative conversation. And I hope that I can continue the really cooperative relationship I've had with his government, which was a carryover from the relationship I had with the Perrottet government.
So you're not going to withdraw your support for the Perrottet government?
Look, it is my hope that the Premier comes to a position where he understands the importance of trans people being able to participate in sport, where he respects that this is something that sport has already dealt with, that we've ironed out any miscommunication that has occurred in that process, and we can continue a cooperative working relationship.
So what's the line here for you, if you like? Will you, in what circumstances,
yeah, sure, good question.
would you withdraw your support?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, I've made it very clear that to Premier Berejiklian and to Premier Perrottet that my line is always attacks on the LGBTI community. I'm concerned about a narrative that is forming within the New South Wales Liberal Party about particularly the trans community, best explained by Felicity Wilson, a member of the Liberal Party, who said that basically women's rights are being used as a veil to attack the trans community. So I'm concerned about this. I need urgent clarification on this. I hope the Premier can provide that clarification to me.
Okay, so we're talking about policy and opinions. So you still have that threat on the table. You will withdraw your support over opinions expressed, not necessarily policy differences.
Look, Laura, everybody in the Parliament knows that I am a passionate supporter of the LGBTI community. It's a large part of my community. I'm a member of that community. It would be impossible for me to support a government where we have a leadership that in any way is forming a narrative which attacks the trans community.
This is just a big call, Alex. You could force an election here. Is that what you want?
What I want is to have a constructive meeting with the Premier. I'm sure we will be able to work things out.
Okay. Well, Labor wouldn't support a no confidence motion. Where does that leave you?
Well, look, again, I'm looking forward to having a meeting with the Premier. I have made it clear to him in the very first conversation I had with him as Premier, in my very first question to him in question time, about the treatment I expect of the LGBTI community, and that means the entire LGBTI community. Everyone in the Parliament knows I'm very transparent on this. I have been from the day I was elected.
Let's be a little bit more transparent. Alex, will you move a no confidence motion at the first opportunity?
Look, I am waiting to have a meeting with the Premier to iron this out, to sort out if there has been any miscommunication.
And
it's not my expectation that I will. Sorry, I'm about to get to the part where I answer your question, Laura. Yeah, sure. It is not my intention in any way to move a vote of no confidence in the government. What I am saying is I have had a respectful and cooperative relationship with the Perrottet government. I have ensured they haven't lost a vote. Now, that's been based on a relationship of mutual respect. I have not been shown this respect in this instance, where comments were made about a community I represent, a community that I'm a member of, without even engaging with me in the first place. And that's deeply concerning to me. So I now have that opportunity to have that conversation, to sort out that issue, and I hope that we do.
Okay, so the position is that you don't want to see any more public comments from the Premier on this issue?
I don't want to see any ill-informed comments from the leadership of the government on issues relating to the LGBTI community. I fully respect that myself and Dom Perrottet have differing views on topics. Voluntary assisted dying most recently. He eloquently outlined his reasons for that based on his own experience, based on his own research. In this case, he hasn't done that. He has backed a candidate who's tortured the trans community, backed her position on it, and backed that up with public comments. Now, I want to give him the opportunity to understand where I'm coming from, the impact of that, and work out a way forward.
All right. Let's talk after the meeting. Alex, thanks for your time as always.
Thanks, Laura.